And in a sense, that's where the action is, really. We can talk about a literacy program, a behavior program, tracking program. It's how do we pull these together inside our schools in a sort of an authentic way, which has real meaning for our staff and for our students. And, I will take some credit here, Wayne, that, when we were sort of playing around with the model for this AIZ, I looked back at my files this morning and just sort of put this sort of slide in. But really, this is where we've been focusing. You've seen this slide before. We're putting efforts here in terms of these programs. But the whole thing has been that we want to see these actually come out and impact upon teaching, curriculum, and assessment. And then, in the outer circle here are the sorts of internal conditions we need to build inside the school. And if I do a similar sort of diagram for the data that's emerging from these 12 schools, high levels of student learning and achievement, a focus on teaching and learning, curriculum, behavior, vision, values, and expectations. That's a sort of the classroom level conditions, but also in terms of the school level, the quality of leadership, staffing, internal accountability, and inclusion. Those seem to be the sort of the key factors that the sort of 12 schools that we've been looking at have been linking together in order to get this sort of massive rise in standards in pretty inauspicious circumstances. All right? So that's what I wanted to say in terms of just sort of introduction, really. And what I want to do, I'm going to get you to discuss what I've said so far for a few minutes. And then what I want us to do is to go in and we're going to try and look at each of these factors individually, all right? Because not to say these schools are doing the right types of things, all right? But to try and to use the experience of these schools as a way of reflecting on what we are doing and to see if we can build up a picture of our own schools here in the Northern Metropolitan region in terms of these factors. I think that these are the right types of factors, all right? Now, of course, the practices under each of those will vary according to context, and that's where we want to have the debate this morning so we can learn from each other. And if we do find that there are areas here that we're not doing as well as we want to, then it's a good indicator of where we need to put some additional support. So that's what we're going to move into. So a discussion of each of these 8. And then I want to come on to some of the more leadership issues right at the end. But for the moment, could you just take a few minutes now on your tables just to discuss what I've said so far? What I've tried to do is to give you the big picture. I've tried to give you some data, try to explain what those communities are like. A little bit of debate on that. I'll take some questions and some comments, and then we'll move on to the interrogation of those 8 factors. Okay? Does that resonate? Does it sort of does the picture sort of resonate with where you are?
We enjoyed the idea of the meshing, the synchronising, getting it together as one project, and the challenge of saying no to projects that come in, because often when you're in schools that have high need, you get bombarded with resources and projects, and then trying to stay focused. That was one discussion we had. The other discussion, I think, is the difficulty to actually win the hearts and minds of teachers in the changes you might make. That they will be compliant and obedient, and if you say do this, they'll do it. But as soon as unless they really believe it in some way, that when the focus comes out, it's not actually part of them and who they are, and so it disappears again. They don't. Yeah, so that was the discussion we had.
Yeah. I think that's. I think for me, those are 2 issues which, if you ask me to reflect some of what I see in your schools, would be 2 of the key ones. Part of the problem of, Wayne's gone now, so I can say this. Part of the problem of having, in a sense, the sort of the visibility that you've got, and also the funding streams that are coming in. There's always something attached onto the end of a funding stream, and you're always trying to deal with all these multiple changes, these multiple innovations. Whereas in fact, what you've got to be doing is say, look, at times just keep away, We've got to, the real trick of leadership, it seems to me, is not to be doing all of those 8 things, but it's to be linking them together in a narrative that makes sense for your own school. They're all there, right? But you will mix them. You'll mix the cake, you know, according to the exact context you're in. And having another additional innovation is always a bit of a problem. Keeping focus seems to be absolutely critical. And I think one of the issues that you seem to be facing is that, you know, there's a lot of this, as you'll see in a minute, is dependent upon having quite open classroom doors and staff who are sort of open to change as well. And I do get a sense of resistance in some cases. And we'll perhaps talk more about that, the specific techniques for doing that this afternoon. But I think it is a real issue.